Hello, welcome to Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. And today I have this amazing guest. I'm super excited to bring him on, John Michael Lander. He is the voice for the voiceless, and he's the founder of An Athlete's Silence. As an athlete, he silently endured sexual abuse and trafficking from the adults entrusted with this training while winning gold medals at the Norway and Danish Cups. He broke his silence with the TED Talk, An Athlete Silence, and developed the predatory grooming trifecta, which we're going to talk about, and predatory internet grooming. Which is, I believe that's capital PIG. He's appeared on ABC, CBS, NBC, CBS News. He's been interviewed for Time and George Clooney Productions Company, and has two novels, Surface Tension and Cracked Surface. And today he is appearing right here on Beyond the Current Situation. Welcome, John Michael.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I think I'm more excited today because I know where this can go and what can happen in our conversations. And I'm excited to go forward with you. I
Oh,
can't wait to
thank
find
you.
out what happens.
Thank you. Yeah. So my listeners, the ones that are listening all the time, they do know it's always an organic conversation, right? And so, um, what better place to start organically is really by just uh, asking you straight out, John Michael. Let's definitely assume that my audience, they don't know your story. Okay. And even if they know who you are or have heard of you, maybe they don't know your story. And maybe I don't know your story, not the way it comes from you. And it's really interesting because, as you know, I speak on other people's podcasts as well. And sometimes it's like, someone wants to hear your background. It sounds so cliche, or, like, oh, so give me a little bit about your background. It's like, oh, you roll it off. But if I may, John Michael, if you can kind of tease out however you would normally do it, give us a backdrop of you as a little boy at whatever age that may be, because I didn't read your book yet. Uh, and dreaming of perhaps being a gold medal swimmer or athlete. How old were you? Who was living in your household?
Sure, definitely. And please, if you have a question, please ask me because I love that. That helps guide the direction of how this goes for your audience. Um, my story really started when my parents moved to a farm. And I was about 12, and I would do flips on the ground, and I was doing them at the pool one day, and the lifeguard there said, "Hey, try it on the diving board." And so I did. And so he says, "Oh my God, I'm going to send you to somebody," which he did. He called the person up, sent me to this coach. That afternoon, we went to the practice with the coach, and I went through the practice with him, and he says, "Great, are you ready? We're going to take you to a meet right now." And I said, "Oh, okay, whatever." I didn't know what to do. I learned four dives, went to the meet, and took second. And so I said, "Oh, this is kind of interesting. This could happen. So maybe we should look forward to it." So I started. So by the time I started at 12, by the time I was 14, I'd qualified for the Junior Olympics in Lincoln, Nebraska. I went, I took eighth, which was a big deal for me. And they sent a letter in the newspaper articles and all this stuff, and a lawyer found it. And from what I understand, he had been following me because there was little snippets all over the place of my story and what was happening. And so he contacted my mother, and my mother and he started meeting. And he basically told my mother that, "Hey, we can help you have a group of professional men who will be able to help because we know how expensive diving is. We know that you're living in this farmhouse that's built in 1800. Um, we know that you have six kids, and maybe we can help." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And he basically He groomed her for several months, meeting with her every week. They would have coffee, they would get meets here or there. And he basically was telling her that the only way I could go to the Olympics was through him
Oh my
and
God.
through his group of men, because they could take care of all the money and all the finances and they will take care of everything. And in return, all she had to do was make sure that I was ready and prepared whenever they wanted to meet with me and be at the right place at the right time. And these professionals, whichever professional it was at the time, would help the family out, would
Okay.
help with doctor's appointments, medicine, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Example, my sister had a horrible sledding accident, had to have reconstructive surgery on her chin. And I just lost a light there.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. Uh, so
So your
maybe I can
sister had reconstructive surgery on her chin, and did they
chin.
pay for it?
They paid for everything.
Let me pause you there, if I may.
Sure.
Where was dad in the picture?
Yeah, it's in the house.
Okay. And
Um,
what did he do for a living?
he was an architect and a
Okay.
draftsman, so he
Okay.
was doing okay.
And where was he during all of this? He was in agreement with mom with this?
Well, this is what's really interesting is I don't know exactly where he was in this whole process. He was there. He did not speak to me because I was not doing football or I was not doing baseball. I was doing this girly sport, diving, and he couldn't wrap his head around that. It was something weird. My father and I had clashed ever since I was little. And as I went through therapy and going through things, we started to realize that my father, before he passed away, we learned that he was abused by the Catholic Church, by the priest. And
So
so he was trying so hard not to put that onto me. But we would have these moments where he would actually take me in the room and start hitting me. And it would tell me, I'm trying to beat this out of you so that you don't go through this.
oh my God, it makes me want
And
to
at the same
cry.
time, he would be crawling into my bed at night after he's been drunk, wrapping himself around me and calling me, I don't know if it's okay if I could be blunt,
Of
but
course.
calling me his pussy boy.
Really?
Yes. One time mom came in and found us, and of course she blamed me that I caused it to happen. So
Really?
yeah, so we had this in the background before I even started diving. And we would
Wow.
kind of, yeah. And so we would go to the store sometimes, and I became really shy because everyone thought I was a little girl. And I would hide behind him because they'd say, "Oh, your daughter's so cute." And I had a buzz haircut. That was his way of saying but it just crazy things like that. And I remember I used to run around we lived in Kettering at the time, and I used to run around in my dad's t-shirt with a belt around my waist because I thought it was my superhero. I
Mm.
had no idea that it looked like a dress. I didn't think anything like that. I was a superpower. I was a superhero. This is my outfit. And that really upset him a lot. And they called me in the kitchen one time and asked me, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I haven't shared this with anybody. They would
Well,
say,
because I asked you where your
"You
dad was. I don't
you
even
pull
know
me up."
this any of the story.
And so both my mom and dad were there and they said, "You want to be a little boy or a little girl?"
How old were you at this time?
3?
Okay. And
And
you
I said,
said,
I don't know. I just want to be me. I like being me. And I just turned around in my little toga outfit, of course, and skipped out. And it
mm,
wasn't that, and then I started thinking, There's something wrong with me." Because I would play kick football with the boys in the neighborhood. Then I turn around and play Barbies with the girls. I didn't think anything about it. I was just being me. And I just was this happy kid. That's all I did. And
mm.
then when we moved into the farm, my dad made out rules for us. I was no longer allowed to wear his t-shirts. I was no longer allowed to dance or sing or anything like that. And I could only play football, baseball, or basketball. So I found secret places that I could go that I could just be myself. But it became that whole mindset of setting me up. So
I'm still
that's what my dad
confused
was.
though. It's interesting to me that while your mother, because you say that your mother was being groomed, it's interesting that your father was just like, was he oblivious or did he just didn't want to know because of this?
I don't know. That's a great question.
And how
And then
confusing was that for you that then as a little boy, he would cuddle with you in your bed.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. And it was more than cuddling. There was, it
Hmm.
became it escalated. And then of course I was always told that it was my fault and I caused it to happen.
Do you
And
think
so,
your dad was gay?
I don't think my dad, I don't know. I don't think so. My dad was really extremely handsome and everybody hit on him. It was just crazy.
So
I
then,
do
do
know,
you think he was a sexual predator?
I don't think he was that either. I guess maybe you're asking me and my defenses go up saying that I don't want to believe that. I don't think, I think my father was trying to comprehend and understand what his experiences were and what did that mean to him and
Mm.
why is there this child in my life that is exemplifying everything that I've been trying to hide for him. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So
Yeah.
I was basically that thorn in his side without realizing that I was.
It's crazy when you think about you also said that your dad had a circumstance or was abused, sexually abused in the Catholic Church. I never knew any of this, by the way, to all of our listeners this morning or this afternoon or evening or wherever you are around the world. This is all first time news for me. So, what's coming to my mind right now is um, what you told me that that you learned that your dad was abused by the Catholic Church, and he was, I believe you said he was trying to kind of save you from similar circumstances of abuse. So, as a sexual abuse survivor, what goes through your mind when you think of the potential patterns as it started back from your father?
Wow, Lily, I'm telling you, you're asking such great questions that no one has ever asked me. And it's interesting that you're saying this is the first time you're hearing it because basically this is the first time I've shared about my dad. Everything has always been focused on my mom. And I'm actually sweating. The armpits are sweaty and I got the
Take your
chills and
time.
everything.
We have
No,
time.
it's
And
really,
thank
it's
you for being open open with me.
no, I'm glad to be. Think that it's really interesting. I think, or I perceive, as the story continued, that it was like a perfect storm. And I feel like my father, in his own way, kind of prepared the whole thing to happen because I normalized the whole fact that my dad would climb in bed with me naked and hold me. Um, I normalized that my parents would walk around the house when we were little, totally naked, and I thought that that was something every family did. And so these things were just like, oh, okay, that's what it is. And I wanted my father's approval so badly that I thought this was the way to get it, and this was okay. I loved him. I looked up to him, and I felt like he protected me in a way. But when things started to get out of control, and I say that because once my mom took over, things became out of control. Once she started setting me up for I don't know, I hate to call them dates because they weren't a date. It wasn't my date. It was a professional date. My father watched, and he watched from the kitchen, and he sat at the table, and he would smoke a cigarette and watch the whole thing happen and never say a word.
Oh, how interesting.
Yes, and I can remember getting in the car with the professionals, looking back at the house, and he looking out of the kitchen window, watching as the car drove away.
Do you think he knew?
Cannot imagine he did not know.
Mm.
I don't know what it meant to him, because we lived in this farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, and for these professionals to drive out in their expensive cars to
Hmm.
come up our long driveway to pick me up, what would you expect? I mean, my
Right.
brother knew. My brother made jokes about it all the time. Oh, that must be for you. That's a black Cadillac. Or oh, a Mercedes is here, and he knew all the cars. My brother knew all of them, and it was kind of like could start picking out who was coming.
Mm.
And but my father never said anything. I can remember screaming inside of my head, "Dad, say something so I don't have to go. Whatever. I don't care what you say. Just don't let me have to go." But we
You
never
didn't want to
spoke.
go initially?
Uh, no. No, well, the first
Wow.
time I think I went because I thought that it was set up as these people are going to help you, and all you have to do is go to dinner or go see a show with this person or go see a play, whatever, a movie, and then you'll come home and tell us all about it. That's how my mom set it up for me. So I thought it was innocent enough. And after the first time, I was so shocked at what was happening. And the first person it happened with was with a optometrist, and I knew who he was beforehand because that's where I went to get my glasses.
Mhm.
But he was a part of this group. And when he started to do the touching, I wasn't quite sure what this meant, you know. And it just was one of those crazy things that and I think the other thing, my brain is just like jumping around, but the other thing that's so confusing, because this was about the time I was 14 when all the professionals came in. The wind blew, my body reacted. So, I mean, for someone to come
Of
and touch me
course.
the way they touched me, I thought it was my fault because I caused it, because I already had been set up with my mom and my father that my father only came into my bed because of my fault. I caused
Mhm.
it. I
Mhm.
created him to lose control or whatever it was that he had. And and he used to say to me like, "Oh, you're too pretty to be a boy. You would have been better being a girl." And those kind of things in my head. And I was a towhead, and everyone else in my family had dark hair, so I felt like an alien anyway. My brother used to joke around and say that I was the milkman's son, or the carny's son when we go to the festivals and stuff. But it was just this constant. Everything was building to this experience. And so at first, I went with it as being part of my job because that's how it was also set up. My
Mhm.
mom said, "These people are going to take care of your diving. All you have to do is do this." And then, before any of the professionals happened, I started to meet with the lawyer who met with my mother, and I met with him over several months, just he and I having dinner, and he would just talk about my dreams, and he became that father figure in a way that
Mhm.
my dad wasn't able to be because he was asking me what I wanted to be and what did I want to do. Basically, he was getting all the information he needed to help build this grooming process. And those are the things that came back. And then finally, he told me that he was going to help me out and that he had these professionals and he drew up a contract that I had to sign. And my job was to keep my grades up, dive, ex- dive as well as I can at every competition, and make sure that the professionals were happy no matter what.
Mhm.
Because if he got a report that they weren't happy, then he was going to have to step in and this contract would be null and void and null. I can't even, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
Null and void. Oh boy. But
Mhm.
that's basically how that whole thing's set up. And as time went on, I knew that this wasn't right, but yet dad did it. So is it okay?
What do you think your mom did?
My mom was so interested in what everyone else was going to think about her. I mean, she would dress up before the professionals came to pick me up.
Well,
She would
do
get in
you
her
think she was
best outfit.
interested in what I where was her interest lied with you?
This is going to sound really cold because this is my interpretation of
Not at
it.
all.
I was her ticket. I was her way to get money into the family. Her way to take it, because if all the medical stuff and all the doctors and all this other stuff was taken care of, she didn't have to worry about that. That money would come back in.
Mhm.
And then she was able to talk to all her friends about, oh, did you know Dr. So and so came over to the house last night? And he took
Mhm.
the time as I was growing up, they called me by my middle name, Patrick, which I hate. And so she would always refer to Patrick is out with Dr. So and so, and Patrick was out here, and they're all helping him. So she was bragging about it to all her friends
Mhm.
because this put her into a social like situation. My mother came from a very wealthy family. Her father built dams all over the country, and so she was used to this kind of level of being with the right people. The story is that she married my dad, who was from the wrong side of the tracks, to get her father's attention.
Mm.
And when her father finally said, "I don't care," she married him because she was actually engaged to the Pabst Blue Ribbon son.
Okay.
So she was all set up. And yet she said, "I'm not getting the attention I want." This is, of course, everything. So that's all part of that whole makeup. My mother was always more interested in how she appeared than what was going on at the house.
Mm,
And she would have us have talks with us saying, all right, you don't want to talk about anything at school. You don't want anyone to know what's happening because we don't want to air our laundry out to everybody else. We want them to see us as this perfect family. And that's what all, it was a facade. The whole thing was a facade for people outside.
mm.
Oh,
Wow, that's a mouthful. For me as a mother, uh, it's it really it paints a picture of someone that sold her child, which is really no different than trafficking. How does that ring with you? Does that sound like something that remotely you felt? Or like looking back now, what
of course, during
what's
the
going on in your
time,
heart? Hmm.
right. Of course, during the time, I had no idea because I didn't
Of
know
course.
have that back vocabulary of what that was or
Well,
what
what
that meant.
child does?
Or what exactly, exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons we have such problems with our children even today with online. And that's a whole nother discussion because they don't see it as a trafficking and they don't see it as grooming because they don't know what that is.
Yeah,
And our brains are not fully developed, and especially with men until later in their
exactly.
20s. So I was going by what everyone was telling me. And when everybody was happy with me, I then became happy no matter what happened. And I guess my performance, whatever you want to call it, seemed to satisfy these people. So that made my mom happy, which made me happy, which made everybody happy.
Mm.
And it wasn't until it was about my 16th, during my 16th birthday. Wow, wow, Lily, thank you. I want to thank you, first of all. You're bringing things out that I have totally packed away for a long time. I remember I was getting picked up and I did not want to go. At this point, I finally think I started to find my voice. I knew this was wrong. I didn't want to do this anymore. At the same time, and then I need to make sure that you understand this too, it's that the coach started paying more attention to me at this time as well. Now, the coach was in his late 20s, very attractive.
Ah.
And so he started paying attention to me, and I was like, yeah, okay. And he would ask my parents if he could take me up to the Ohio State University to practice with the university team because that's where he was from. He was an alumni, and it would be overnight trips. And so, of course, and then he also made a deal with my mother, said, listen, the only way this kid is going to do well at these international meets and hopefully get to the Olympics and get a scholarship is if you step away. I need to have his full commitment. I need to have his full attention. I'm going to take care of his diet. I'm going to take care of his workouts. I'm going to take care of, taking him to and from practices and meets. I need you to just step away. And this was his way to isolate me. And so
Mm-hmm.
he would take me to Ohio State. That's when the abuse started happening with him. But unfortunately, he first told me that I know what you're going through. I understand. I've been there. And, he'd tell me that, hey, you can come talk to me. I am the person that you'll understand, and I'll understand you. This is our secret. This is between us. So we don't need to tell anybody. Nobody would understand. The other teammates are jealous of you right now because you've already qualified for Norway and the Denmark Cup and the Canadian Cup and Mexico. So they don't understand what's going on with you. So that's what's happening. That is all set up. So when he started to do the abuse, I thought he liked me.
Mm.
I thought he was my knight in shining armor.